Hello Mustangs, it's Mrs. Belo here with another edition of First Chapter Friday. And this week for First Chapter Friday, the book that I have for you is Left for Dead. So this is a non-fiction title, but it has been made into a movie. So the movie is called Indianapolis, and it stars Nicolas Cage. And this book is Left for Dead, a young man's search for justice for the USS Indianapolis. It is based on real events. The idea for this book actually came about due to a student's National History Day project. He and his father were watching the movie Jaws, and there's a scene in the movie Jaws where the captain of the ship talks about his tattoo and the men that went down and were in the water with the sharks. And so the Hunter Scott, the kid who was doing the project, looked at his dad and was like, "Is that true?" And his dad, in true dad fashion, said, "Well, let's look it up." And so they looked it up, and it led to Hunter doing this amazing History Day project that brought all this information to light about the events that happened on the USS Indianapolis. So it's a really, really fascinating story set during World War II. It's also an award winner. It's won multiple nonfiction awards. So there is a preface of this book, but I'm going to skip the preface. It's Hunter Scott talking about what led him, what led to the creation of his project and what he learned throughout it. And I'm going to jump right into chapter 1 here for First Chapter Friday with Left for Dead. Chapter 1, The Sailor, July 1945. The horror has seared my mind like a hot poker, and I cannot forget it. After 50 years, the dates and faces have lost their distinction, but the horror never gives way. The older I get, the more it bothers me. I can still hear the screams of the injured and dying. Cozell Smith, 1994. The sailor finds himself swimming in the open ocean, wondering in shock how it came to this so suddenly. It's just past midnight. He'd been sleeping above deck because it was too hot below and it smelled of sweat and bad breath and dirty laundry. He woke up at 11:30, half an hour before his turn to stand watch. He went to the mess hall, grabbed a cup of coffee from the 50-gallon urn, and took his coffee topside. A quarter moon appeared briefly in the break in the clouds, high overhead. Now it's dark. He looks up, straining to see the moon. There's no light. The last light he saw was his ship on fire. Flames, smoke, mixed with the horrible sounds of men screaming. "I can't swim!" the man hanging onto him shouts. The sailors wonder how they could let a man who can't swim join the Navy. The sailor's name is Cozell Lee Smith, but they call him Smitty. The man whose life he's saving is named Dronit. Smith has no life jacket. Dronit has no life jacket. Smith has already warned Dronit not to get scared and grab him about the neck, that he'll leave him if he does. He'll save Dronit's life if he can, but if he has to, he will cut him loose. He's already tiring. He's a strong swimmer, but Dronit is heavy, weighing him down. Smith swims. He gets a mouthful of seawater. He spits, coughs, keeps swimming. He inhales fumes and feels sickened by them. He hears screaming. He wonders how many others there are. He can't see a thing, it's too dark. He can't tell what direction the screaming is coming from. He strains for breath and accidentally swallows another mouthful of seawater, but it's not just seawater. It's fuel oil from the ship's ruptured tanks, thick and gooey. Instantly, he's covered in it. It goes down his throat. More fumes. He feels sick and retches. He pushes his vomit away from him in the water. Dronit is coughing. "What is it?" Dronit asks. "Oil," Smith gasps. "Hang on, keep kicking." The irony is that if Smith hadn't joined the Navy, he might well have been working in the oil fields back in Oklahoma. He'd volunteered at the age of 17, fresh out of 10th grade. His father, a barber, signed the permission papers with the thought that joining the Navy might keep his son out of the kind of trouble a boy might get into, hanging around in a small town with nothing to do. He spits. The oil goes down his throat, even when he tries not to swallow. The ship burned oil to heat its boilers, which created the steam needed to turn the turbines to drive the propellers, which seamen call screws. It was, for its size, one of the fastest ships in the world, with a flank speed of 32 knots. He'd been standing at his watch station in the bathtub, an anti-aircraft battery protected by a circular splinter shield, shooting the breeze with Jimmy Reed, another coxswain from his division, when they heard the explosion. The shock of the blast nearly knocked him off his feet. "What the heck was that?" Smith asked. Reed said he thought it was a boiler exploding. "That could be good," Reed said. Smith wondered what could be good about it. "We'll go back to the States for repair," Reed explained. Then the ship began to list, still moving forward but tilting to starboard, 5 degrees, then 10. Smith thought it would stop any second, but it didn't, listing 15 degrees, then 20. It slowly dawned on him that the unthinkable was coming to pass. They were sinking. Were they? Impossible. Not impossible. It was happening. When the list reached 30 degrees, he climbed down from his position and scrambled to the high side, grabbing hold of the steel cable lifeline that girded the ship. Other men had nothing to grab onto and fell. One man fell backward into the number 3 gun turret and hit it hard with his head. His head cracked with a sound like Babe Ruth hitting a baseball. That man was dead. A second man fell into the gun turret, and Smith could hear his bones break. The ship kept rolling over on its side until it reached 90 degrees. Smith ran across the hull of the overturned ship. In the dim light through the smoke, he saw other men scattered down the length of the ship, some running, some standing, frozen with fear. He was about to jump off the keel when Dronit stopped him and asked him for help, explaining that he couldn't swim. Now they're together in the water. A scream. Smith looks around. Where is the screaming coming from? Is it a scream, something to be avoided or approached? He swims. Smith is tired. His eyes sting from the oil. He looks up. The moon is again breaking through the clouds. He tries not to swallow salt water. "Kick!" Smith commands. The screams grow louder. They swim to a group of men, about 8 in all. "Oh, God! Oh, God! Oh, God!" one is screaming. "Let me go! Just let me go, please!" "Hang on!" "No, let me go!" "Hang on!" 2 men are supporting the man who's screaming. The screaming man has his arms around the shoulders of the other 2. His eyes open and close. His mouth is open in a grimace. Smith notices something white, shining in the waxing moonlight. It's the man's bones. The flesh has burned off his arms and his bones are showing. The salt water stings him. He wants to die. He wants the others to let him die, but they won't. Smith says nothing. The man with the burned arms looks around, looks at Smith, then looks away. He's in agony. The others speak to him, urging him to hold on. Then his head tilts forward, face in the water. For a long time, he doesn't move. The 2 men supporting the man with the burned arms finally give him up for dead and release him. The man whose bones are showing floats towards Smith and Dronit. Smith is exhausted from supporting Dronit and feels as if he's about to drown. The man whose bones are showing is wearing a life jacket he doesn't need anymore. So Smith takes it off him and helps Dronit into it. Dronit can't swim. He needs the life jacket more than Smith does. Freed from the jacket, the burned man sinks. For now, there's enough buoyancy in the life jacket to support both of them. Smith finally rests, hanging on to his new friend. In the distance, he hears somebody shouting, "Help me! Somebody, please! Oh, God!" Other men scream, but don't use words. Men are injured. Men are dying all around him. There is confusion everywhere. Smith tries not to panic. He can't help anybody right now. 2 men near him in the water are talking. "Torpedoes," one says. "How many?" "I heard 3. The moon disappears. When it's gone, it's pitch black. The screams continue through the night. men suffering from and succumbing to their injuries. As the screams abate, Smith realizes the quiet doesn't mean things are getting better. It means only that men who were screaming have died. He feels lucky that he has no injuries, but that isn't much to feel lucky about. At first light, the seas are calm. Smith is cold and welcomes the light because he knows it will bring warmth. He's covered in oil, thick and greasy. It stings his eyes. Droned is covered in oil too. Everyone is. Shiny, black, unidentifiable faces bobbing in the water. As the light grows in strength, he sees something floating in the water near him. Hanging on to Droned, he kicks toward it, hoping it's food or water. But instead, it's a body. He can't tell whose. There were 250 new recruits on the ship. They were all headed for the Philippines for gunnery practice before an invasion of the Japanese main islands. What sense did that make? Smith had been firing the guns for over 2 years. He didn't need any practice. The dead man is floating face down. Smith swims away from the body. He looks around. He sees a second body, then a third. There are bodies everywhere. How many of my shipmates are dead? How many of us have survived? He sees a splash in the distance and thinks it could be a man slapping his hand against the water trying to swim. But then he sees a fin. The terror of it hits him. To his left, he watches as a body is suddenly pulled under. He sees a tail. The water is full of sharks. That's the first chapter of Left for Dead. It is the true story of the USS Indianapolis. It's one of the ships from World War II, and it's an incredibly harrowing tale. I hope you will check it out. It is available in the Mustang Library, and it is a book that's been made into a movie. The movie is called The Indianapolis.